But first of all, congratulations on building an app that looks, absolutely set to take children forward and to make them ready for the next century and what it is that they're going to be seeing as they dive forward, not only into the 21st, but maybe the century even after that, because AI definitely is the way to go forward. So the first question that that I'll ask you is, what would you say are 21st century skills? What would you list out as 21st century skills?
Yeah, and actually, I'll take a cue from what Dr. B.K. Singh was saying, and you were talking about earlier. The century that we are in, and particularly the year that we've seen right now, isn't experiencing 100 years of change. We're literally experiencing 20,000 years of change at today's pace. And I think COVID has made make sure that everybody realizes how fast disruption can happen because of technology. But that having said that, that's even more an exciting phase where it allows us to become even more human if you were to use technology right. After all, I think as a generation, we don't want to be class B bots. We want to be class one humans first, right? So what are the skills that will make sure that our human personas come out? The fact that we are able to express ourselves, express our point of view, the point that you were making, makes us more human. Because what is happening in the world is everything that can be digitized, whether it is manual in terms of bot writing algorithms, or in terms of, say, robobots being able to do medical procedures, which are high cognitive jobs, are going to get digitized.
It's extremely interesting to see that your app is committed to the cause of contextualizing the human element in everything that we do going forward. In that sense, now I'm going to come straight to the question of communicating, which I think is how we actually express ourselves. I mean, that is where all your human interactions, your activities, I think that's the start point of everything out there. So yours is an AI-based app. So how can AI help in teaching? First of all, what makes a well communicated idea, and how can AI help in drafting those well communicated ideas and bringing them out?
Sure. I mean, I think all of us, I mean, especially the fact that because we have this forum where all of us are actually debating and putting our point across, we all understand the impact of well communicated ideas, right? It has the power to influence the circumstances you are in, influence the people around you for you to be able to drive the change. And I think specifically with your Generation Z, like we love to sort of say it, the fact is that you are dialoguers. Unlike our generation where we were creating communities by way of economic interests or social settings or proximity physically, I think you all are very well known to be leaders in terms of being able to drive causes and change by way of what you passionately feel about. So communication cannot be undermined, considering the fact that most of this generation is going to be gig workers, which means that you'll tend to have many varied interests and be able to simultaneously pursue it. It becomes even more important to have your digital footprint well established and be able to create your brand identity in the digital world, right? So definitely on that point of view and communication being paramount importance, irrespective of whatever you do from a technical standpoint as you're part of learning. Now, where does AI really come in? I think AI, if you were to think about AI or as a buddy or a bot who's sitting on your shoulders, just being able to remediate as it watches you is the beauty of how we've been able to translate it. So in terms of application that you asked me, Devangi, but few applications that I would love to sort of discuss with children here is that think about the fact that we are all boxed together by the year of our birth in the education system. However, my reading, my learning pace might be slightly different. So I might be equal to a 17-year-old, whereas I'm 15 because of great comprehension skills that I have, or because of the exposure that I've had, and it could be vice versa as well. So AI's ability to be able to gauge your reading age, your comprehension age, as against biological age becomes the first advantage. But because your start point is according to where you would be comfortable with versus where you've been boxed into classes and grades because of the industrial era of education that we've been following so far. So that's the first advantage. The second might be that it's an amazing world with varied passions have this place, right? Which means that the AI or the technology is able to see what my reading interests are and what your reading interests are, which means that I could allow you to explore many topics that you would like to read, but allow you to go deeper into a few. So being able to draw out your knowledge drafts or content drafts is another application. And the other third thing is obviously the whole concept of spaced repetition, right? Where we are able to play with the learning curve to say, okay, this is a difficult word. The child is going to forget it faster. So should I repeat it more frequently for them to remember it well? And especially because this is a word which has got many, many, many other words that are correlated. It's got a root value, which is very important. He's likely to use this word more often. So throw it back to him more importantly, right? And what I love, frankly, about technology is the fact that, as against the education system where we always say, listen, 100% is very important, here it's like a game level, which means that you start with your level and keep rising as you keep mastering the skills. So the skills have been gamified on an app, and we obviously call it the future skills, the skills that will help them to build a point of view about very topics that are coming in a curated manner and be able to express it. But the important part where AI plays another role is to be able to give you the feedback when you're giving a point of view. So imagine now you putting a point of view in a discussion or on the app, and us being able to use NLP to be able to extract whether the key points were expressed or not.
Out, and that just shows me that your app probably does a very good job of matching critical thinking skills with powerful debating and communication skills, which I think would be a very great combination for all children of this generation to have, because like you said, there are going to be many scenarios. Many of them are going to be gig workers. They're going to have their interests invested in various places, and to be able to handle all that, you need critical thinking, you need the right communication. I think debating is a great platform to be able to do that, practice that, learn that. So I think your app kind of matches everything with this great ethos and this great philosophy at the heart of it. So that brings me to my final question. I'm going to quickly ask you, what is your take on digital literacy?
Oh, it's fundamental. I think as against the earlier generation, and I think Mr. Singh, Dr. Singh was also mentioning that, we were given a curriculum, we were asked to master it, and it seemed way simpler. I think where we are is obviously in the information economy, where there's so much information being hit that the first step actually becomes about knowing whether reading credibly or not. And whether we are reading credibly or not comes from fundamentally us having the skills of digital literacy, which means that which link to click, whether the source that I'm relying on is credible or not, whether this author is introducing a bias to my opinion or not. Just being able to have those, think about it as those power glasses that you have. You can see through an author's article to say, no, that's an influence. I think that's an influencing article that he has written, but why would he write it? Is it an advertisement very nicely cascaded and masked away? So digital literacy skills are very important, because otherwise the problem is that you will get caught in filter bubbles. And I think you all know this, right? I mean, I click on a feed on Instagram and I'll be flooded by those kind of biased articles. So reading credibly is the first fundamental skills before you even understand what you're reading. And it's pretty much foundational to what we start with as well. So I'm very passionate about it. And some of the pedagogical frameworks that we've ingested are modeled around the civic online reasoning frameworks from Stanford Literacy or the News Literacy Project. So yeah, I think you'll see a lot of interesting adaptations of that on the platform as well.
It's great to see how you're trying to break the polarization created by influencing content out there, and actually gifting the benefit of critical thinking and then shaping communication for children in the upcoming generation. Great work, and thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts. I'm sure all the students out there will want to try out the app.
Yeah. But one note that I definitely want to leave with children is, I don't think debating is a prerogative of few. It's fundamentally a life skill that you should build for yourself, not only in school, but how you will be able to interact in your corporate settings, or just be able to convince your parents about something you want. So think about it like this. It's pretty much a life skill to be able to build for yourself.